Hi, I know a Child Abuse Awareness Month coming up. I said I'm going to do a lot about child abuse as a former victim myself. But I want to move over for that just for one second, only because today, the USA Today paper had the increased deaths due to addictions, alcohol and drugs, and also increased due to suicide. Simultaneously, Demi Lovato was kind enough to put out her own post also about relapsing and mistakes. So I just want to pivot off of that. A lot of people, when they relapse or make a big mistake in their lives, where they hurt themselves or other people, they tend to think they ruined everything they've ever done. I used to say that a lot made big mistakes. I'd say I undid everything good I've ever done before. It doesn't work that way. You didn't undo everything you did before. You're not a bad person. We also think our mistakes define us. We are our mistakes. And that's wrong. We're not our mistakes. Our mistakes don't define us unless we let them. We're still good people who just happen to make a mistake. We'll let our defenses down if it's a relapse, underestimate the disease. And there's that voice always playing saying, why try? It's the 5th relapse, why keep trying? Or your 20th mistake this month, why try? You always want to try. I've been privileged to know a lot of people who have 40 years, 50 years, and even 60 years sobriety. And they had relapses at the beginning too. But they eventually were able to hold on, and they will die sober. I know people have died sober. It can be done. It's one day at a time. And one day at a time is used in different ways. Everybody knows how to use it, to let go of mistakes in the past. I'm big on that. And also people not worrying about the future. How am I going to pay my bills next month? I'm also big on that. But there's another way one day at a time is used. Sometimes it's a trap saying you have 5 years sobriety, 10 years sobriety, 15 years sobriety, because if God forbid you do have a relapse or make a mistake, you're going to say, I blew 15 years, I would have been my 10th year. Forget that. No one really has 10 years. Everyone has one day. It's one day at a time. For today, you're sober. For today, you're clean. And when you look to it that way, it takes away some of the sting. So let's put our pride aside a little bit. Forget how many years we have. It's one day. Are you clean today? That's the most important thing. I also, like mistakes, everyone makes mistakes. I think the Bible says a just man falls 7 times a day. That's probably the number one part of the gospel I live it exactly. We all make mistakes. Let go of them. Don't let them define us. I want to also talk about Demi Lovato just for a second. I've been doing these type of things. I've been in the media since the 1990s, doing talk shows and interviews and newspaper articles. And since the 1980s, I've been speaking to colleges and universities. So I've seen other speakers out there come and go. I have to say, Demi is one of the most effective people I've seen so far who really helps people. She probably helps more people than she realizes, because her secret is she shares herself. And people feel they're not alone. They're not there. Look, Demi is the same way I am. And it really helps people. So I have to thank Demi again for sharing her personal visit, which she does not have to do, and all the sharing she's done in the past. While on that note, I also noticed that Selena Gomez is coming out with a new album. I have to give Selena a lot of credit. For someone who's still in her 20s, she's been through a lot of issues herself and depressions, and she's a lot of physical issues like lupus, which eventually caused kidney failure in her. I mean, she almost died from it. She had to have a kidney transplant a little more than a year ago. But while all that's going on, she's putting out new songs, new albums, acting in movies, animated movies, producing TV series. This is showing me that someone that doesn't let their problems overcome them, they overcome their problems. They defeat their problems. And that's a success story, because that's a good example. Because we all have problems. And sometimes people will say, when I get through these problems, then I'll do this. When I get through this, then I'll do this. If I had that attitude, I would not have 4 books in print right now. I wouldn't even have 1 book in print. There's always problems going to come our way. So the example is that don't let your problems stop you from still trying to succeed. We can be successful and still be dealing with problems. Problems are always going to be here, but they also go. Finally, I also want to say on that note with suicide. You know, I've spoken many times on TV about suicide. I myself was suicidal growing up as a child due to the verbal abuse in my house. I was physically and verbally abused, but it was the verbal abuse that caused the suicide thoughts. I've known a lot of people over the years, because my volunteer work, who also was suicidal. And there's one thing for those of us that thought of suicide but did not do it, or attempted it, but thank God lived. All of us who thought of suicide but never committed suicide, never died, 100%, not 90%, not 99%, 100% of us were happy we lived. Why? Things always got better. We always think problems are going away. They absorb us problems. We let them take us over. Problems are always temporary. All things must pass. Loneliness. Loneliness was a big motivation for me over the years. Loneliness, as much as it hurts, is temporary. Loneliness goes away. So keep that in mind as well. What do you do if you're still in school? Go to your school social worker, go to the school counselor. I used to always say, no, I know what they're going to say. I know what they're going to say. No, I didn't know what they're going to say. There's a lot of things that are helpful to me. There's also churches are a wealth of different help for you. They have 12-step programs in churches, self-help groups, parish outreach, counseling. Lots of times it's free. It's always free, the 12-step programs and self-help groups. Go to whatever pastor it is. That's got to be a church that you belong to. If that church doesn't have something, go to a different church. They're free. It's a great source to keep yourself occupied. Also, when your suicidal trick I had is, don't stay home. You want to stay at home and be depressed, get out. Go to work, go to school, get out there. Go to the library if you have to. Do not go to bars. Don't go to parties where there's drugs and alcohol. Don't hang with people where they're going to be drinking and doing drugs. Worst thing to do when you're feeling depressed. Hang with people who aren't doing that. Even if they're not your best friends, you want to be with people, be out there. These are things that I've done. Get involved in things. I started volunteer work even when I was still depressed. You think that's kind of silly? No. Because when you're helping other people, it helps you. Why do you think 12-step programs talk about service and helping each other? Because it lifts your self-esteem up. And that's what also worked for me. There's also the number, the suicide prevention number, which is 1-800-273-TALK, 1-800-273-TALK. Also, the National Runaway Safe Line, which is 1-800-RUNAWAY, 1-800-RUNAWAY. Because I used to run away also as a teenager, and a lot of runaways are also suicidal. They can help you that as well. So again, moving on with the abuse, we'll be talking more about that. But share this video with other people. You know, you don't know in your life who's being abused, who's thinking of suicide. Valedictorians have been suicidal. So share this and forward this to everyone you know. You'd be surprised who it might help out. Again, I keep mentioning books. Of course, you can always go on Power Publishing Corp, C-O-R-P, powerpublishingcorp.com. Check out the books and just check out other interviews like that. That's free. And again, thanks. Get you next time.